In 1998, Fatboy Slim released a record called Praise You, and I'm going to dig up the original samples and see if I can reproduce it on my phone using Koala. Now, Fatboy Slim is definitely what I would call a crate digger. Some of the samples he used were so obscure that you really just don't understand how he found them, and this first one is an amazing example of that. It comes from a record that was given away free if you bought a JBL speaker hi-fi setup. So they gave you this record to try and test out how your speakers sound. And the idea was that you were behind the scenes at a recording session while they produced a song. So it's people chatting in the studio, it's people testing out different microphones, things like that. And at some point, in amongst all the chatter, someone does this. So Fatboy Slim clipped that one little bit and it became the main melodic hook for the whole track. How he found it, God knows, but I'm glad he did. It's worth having a quick listen to the original, to the end track, to what they're actually recording, because it sounds nothing like that piano riff at all. Just might pickle with me. It's by a guy called Hoyt Axton, who I'd never heard of, but it turns out, weird little fact, he was the dad in Gremlins.
What is it?
Mogwai.
Now, Fatboy Slim was taking these samples off the vinyl and loading them up into an Akai S950 sampler. You can see him with the box of floppy disks that he had all these things on here. I'm going to clip it off YouTube and drop it into Koala. The next sample is from Camille Yarbrough, and this is kind of a special song for me. The song's called Take Your Praise, and it was actually the first dance at my wedding. So, that's nice. I really recommend that you go and listen to it because it's a totally different vibe from Praise You. They're both good songs, but if I had to pick one, it's the Camille Yarbrough First Dance at My Wedding special.
Baby. I have to praise you like I should. You're so rare.
Now, in terms of Koala, there's loads of stuff that we're going to do to this sample now. There are tons of bits where that last little syllable is kind of lengthened and chopped up and repeated. And there's some different cool ways you can do that in Koala. But the first way is to just take that last little bit and just stretch it. So we'll time stretch it to half a bar, however long we want that to be. Now, although that sounds pretty good and it does the job of making it longer, it's not the sound that's on the record. Instead, I think what he's done is he's clipped a small part of that sample and done a ping pong back and forth loop. When you do ping pong, where it moves backwards and forwards, it's not as jarring as if you loop round and round and round. It's a much smoother thing. It's moving that start and end time of that ping pong. As you get closer and closer to it, you can sort of hear that it gets closer and closer to the sound of the record. But the other way is to do note repeat. Note repeat is something that I use all the time for hi-hats especially. It's really good with kick drums as well. You can, if you're playing live, you can play kick drums live and get them bang on beat and then have that ratcheting up where you do on every, like 4 to the floor, and then you go dum 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 dum, which is like a Fatboy Slim staple. So here's what it looks like in Koala. Okay, in terms of samples now, we go from the sublime to the ridiculous. This is an instrumental taken from a Mickey Mouse Disney disco cash-in album where they do a disco version of It's a Small, Small World. I mean, the sample sounds great, so what do you say? So in terms of paying royalties to people for using their samples, it seems like the late 90s was a bit all over the place. Fatboy Slim talks about one of his earliest records, the first time I ever really heard of him as a solo artist. It's called Dub Be Good To Me, really good track. It uses like a massive chunk of like Guns of Brixton, I think, by The Clash. And The Clash really liked the record, and they'd heard like a demo version of it or whatever, and so he thought it was cool. And then he went to number one, and all of a sudden The Clash, or The Clash's record label, was saying, yeah, you're making quite a lot of money out of this. Can we have some of that, please? So anyway, It's a little frustrating, I guess, in retrospect, to see this sample from Isaac Hayes, where it's just somebody playing a couple of bongos, and you sort of think you couldn't like spend 80 quid on a pair of bongos and play it yourself and save the 10% of royalty. Hey, listen, whatever. The guy lives in a massive house and is very happy. So now it's on to a prog rock band covering the Ray Charles classic What I Say. Again, it's a great bit of music. It's like 7 minutes into the track. How did he find it? Norman Cook, Fatboy Slim, Great Digger, Extraordinaire. Well, this is the last sample that I'm going to talk about. Billy Squire, You Should Be High Love. It's really just used for that kind of big crescendo feedback noise. Sounds great. He's pitched it up a few semitones. There's another 3 samples on here. The stuff from the Fat Albert cartoon theme tune. There's like more random drum beats. It's just cutting and splicing all over the place. The Camille Yarbrough sample that I mentioned earlier, it'd be great if you could just pick that up and drop it into the song, but it's the rhythm's all wrong. So actually what you've got to do is splice it up almost word by word and then drop it into the rhythm. This is something that that Norman Cook, Fatboy Slim, figured out how to do during the making of this record, but it makes it really difficult to mess about with on Koala. So I'll show you what it looked like halfway through me trying to chop this up.
We've come a long, long way together, through the hard times and the good.
It's painstaking. And then finally, this is the best I can do. Like, please don't leave a comment saying, oh, this bit's crap, because I know I've tried really hard. It's a really difficult song to make on a sampler. Anyone who thinks that the Fatboy Slim type chop up collage type music is easy to make, man, you should try it. And you know, you can, because Koala is $5 on your phone. So please give it a go. Anyway, see what you think.
We've come a long, long way together, through the hard times and the good. I have to celebrate you, baby. I have to praise you like I should.